and welcome to Heavy Thoughts. I am Will,
Milton.
and here we are going to talk about process-oriented thinking today. And this is process-oriented as opposed to results-oriented thinking. So when you hear trust the process or believe in the process, we're going to try and decode a little bit about what that means.
Sure, and this is something that obviously, you can. Didn't mean to shake the table. Obviously, that you can apply to wargaming and strategy, but it's also a topic that's been in a lot of articles recently with like business management and sports psychology, as far as just a really useful way to think about improving results. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that you touch on this is something that I use in every aspect of my life. I talk about the process a lot, and I really do believe in process-oriented thinking.
Yeah, there was a couple weeks ago, I was watching SNL with my wife, and there was a skit on SNL where there was a character who's like a stupid NFL football player, and the thing he kept repeating was "trust the process."
Yeah,
So if you've
trust the
ever heard
process.
like somebody who doesn't know
Yeah.
what they're talking about saying "trust the process," that's because their sports psychologist is talking about exactly this topic.
Just trust the process. You just gotta, trust it.
Yeah. So now let's talk about what it is.
Right. Okay, so I guess let's start by defining results-oriented thinking. That's probably an easier place to start. So results-oriented mindset is I won this tournament, I therefore played great and am amazing. Or I lost this tournament, I played badly, I did things incorrectly. Or another results-oriented mindset is dice blame mentality, where you're looking at the individual minutia of the data set rather than the data set as a whole. You're looking at what happened in your specific instance rather than what the greater statistics would tell us.
Yeah, and so the way that we can usually apply that as far as like a learning process and getting better at Kill Team in particular is if you think about your game that you recently played and you're like, okay, like I made this really risky play and it ended up working for me because I rolled a bunch of sixes and my opponent rolled a bunch of ones and I got everything I needed. Well, in your next game, in a similar situation, you might be faced with a choice of do I go for that risky play? And if you're results oriented and you have that feedback loop in your head of like, well, this worked for me last time.
It worked last time. It's gonna work this time.
And that's, you can end up, running into situations like, well, this has worked before. Why didn't it work this time? And then getting frustrated because you're focused on the results of that first outcome, results of that first situation, instead of whether or not going in was a sound decision.
Right.
And so that kind of leads us into the opposite end of the spectrum, which is process-oriented thinking. So instead of, results-oriented, your focus is going to be on, like, okay, in this particular situation, with all of the information that I have, what's the most probable outcome, and what's the most advantageous line of play that I have? What gives me, the majority of the time, the best result?
Yeah, the card players talk about expected value, right? That's very much what you're trying to do with process-based thought in the pregame, but it also applies a lot to how you analyze games, how you recover between matches. I think process-based mentality requires a lot of self-honesty as a first step. You can't coddle yourself. You can't just blame bad luck or dice. You have to really understand what you as a player are doing, what you are responsible for, what you are in control of, and what you are not in control of. So process-based theory says that I will focus all of my attention and my energy onto those actions which I am in control of, those parts of the game that I have direct control over, I can influence. And the things that I cannot influence, while you don't completely disregard them, it doesn't hang up your entire approach because, let's say a great example of this, when you first started playing Blades of Cain, I was playing a Corsair Voidsguard in to this, and we're basically in the last activation of the game, and I have to kill an injured elf on 3 wounds, and okay, great, I just have to roll. I'm rolling 4 dice. I need 1 3-up. We got this. And sure enough, I roll 4 blanks and lose the game because of it. But like that doesn't mean what I did was wrong there.
Yeah, you made the right decision
Right.
in the given circumstance, and even though it didn't work out,
Yeah.
you know going forward, well, that's the decision I need to continue to make in that particular situation.
Right. I shouldn't devalue the line of play that got me to that position where I had played the game to a winning position up until this particular instance where a statistical anomaly raises its head.
Sure. And there's kind of 2 reasons that I think it's super important to keep that sort of thing in mind. Like you said, we have to focus on the things we can control.
Yes.
And the thing that we can most control is our decision making.
Yes.
Right? Like the dice are going to be dice. There's ways that you can try to minimize the effects of dice on your game. Like obviously there's a reason that there's very good players that consistently win large events. It's not because they have this magical power to always roll 6s.
It is not.
It's because they consistently make better decisions to put themselves in a stronger board state, and by consistently doing that, win more games.
Absolutely. And, when they do lose games, they are honest about how and why they lost those games. They break down and they dissect the games and look for the alternative decision points that they could have changed that would have influenced those games. And that's a great way in how to move forward in your learning process, truly.
Yeah, and even if you're, there's a bunch of people putting out good content on tabletop gaming right now. There's all sorts of channels out there talking about strategy. And even if they're not talking about it with this particular terminology, a lot of these things are the same things that folks are saying on like Art of War. They are approaching the game with this similar mindset. This is just sort of the terminology that the rest of the world uses for this concept.
Right. I mean, being old school Magic nerds, I can go back to 2008 and talk about articles that involve this process mindset. We can go back and talk about Richard Feldman's "What's Wrong with Being Results Oriented," which talks about a Pro Tour Berlin 2008, which was a really fun tournament.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of great articles if you look at Star City Games. They've got some of the really old MTG Dojo content on there.
The
talks about
Dojo
same
is the good stuff.
And this is something that we've tried to apply in all of our games.
Absolutely.
And reviewing things. If we're driving 4 hours to a tournament, on the 4-hour drive back, it's like, okay, let's break down the game and see like what were the decisions that I made wrong, like what could have given me better play.
Absolutely.
And there might be a little bit of bitching about dice.
Sure,
but
I mean,
you get that out of the way, and then you get down to the stuff that actually matters, right?
You lick the salt from the wounds, and then you just get better. You either win or you learn. Cool. Well, I think that's enough heavy thoughts for one day.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for sticking around. We'll put out some other videos fairly soon on some other similar concepts. Until next time, though, if you're interested in more very adequate strategy for tabletop gaming, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you soon.